Okay, I didn't trip coming up here, so I got that right so far. I'm going to take a picture of all of you. I'm so excited to be here. Hi. Hi, everybody. All right, we'll save that for later. Okay. Okay, so first, I want to thank you all for being here today. I want to thank She's the First for having me. I love when people make a commitment to themselves and their dreams, and pulling yourself together this Saturday morning and really thinking about where you want your future to be is kind of the thing that gets me the most excited. I'm excited for the big, beautiful, limitless lives that all of you have before you. Every time someone asks me to give a speech, I spiral into a kind of madness. At first, I'm just so honored to be asked, and I feel so cool, and my ego has good vibes, and I'm kind of cocky, and I'll be like, oh, I'll just talk about stuff, like, whatever, I got this. And then as the days gets closer, I become obsessed and paralyzed by the details, like where I will sit or stand, or what I will do with my hands, if there will be water. By the time I walk onto stage, I have made myself really positive that I will spit or trip or something will happen that's so horrifying that the speech itself will be the end of my career and embarrass my family for decades to come. And I tell you that because I want you to know that I'm not that much different than you. I have more experience than you, but I still have the same fears and insecurities and self-doubt that all of you have. For a long time, I was one of those people who felt like it needed a lot of help, particularly when it came to my career. And I tried and tried to follow conventional career advice. I bought a lot of those books, you know, the ones with important sounding titles, and buying lots of important people on the covers, and the people on the covers have like closed mouth smiles, and they're wearing like real sexy business outfits or really not sexy business outfits, or a lot of cashmere. And I would pore over the library sections and bookstore shelves looking for advice on the habits of highly successful people, how they dressed and thought, and how they dared and influenced and communicated and innovated and ideated and motivated, all the eights, right? And these books get a lot of people stoked and because they teach like some secret to success, and they're jargony and jazz handy, and they kind of like wink and dimple through what you're supposed to do. But it's often in a one-size-fits-all way. And those books never spoke to me. They never felt like they were written for people who were clumsy and emotional like me, or who were poor like me, or felt bad about themselves all the time like me. And the advice seemed like I would need to change my fundamental being in order to succeed, develop some kind of confidence code that felt really out of reach. So I wrote my book, Weird in a World That's Not, as an antidote to traditional advice, because I had gotten to an objectively successful point of my career, but I couldn't relate to the images of success being fed to me. So I was successful, but I didn't look like these people, right? And I didn't feel like them. The image of success, the image that was in those books, was powerful and polished and poised, and the rest of us were like basket cases who needed to be dragged off by security. I wrote my book because I felt like there needed to be a guide for misfits like me. And I needed to create a guide that not only addressed the tangible issues of working, the real problems that are objective, you know, as being a modern woman in the workplace, like a stupid, tight, and ever-changing job market, rampant sexism and racism in the workplace, a persistent wage gap, a lack of precedent for female leadership in most careers, and mansplaining men, or in many cases just men, are the problem everywhere you look. So I wanted a guide that addressed those things, of course, but also a guide that could help people like me with anxieties and in problems that existed only inside of our heads. Overcoming class issues, what to do with my hands, why I always felt like I was in trouble, the nagging sensation that I was an incompetent garbage person and soon everyone would know. So today, that was a long preamble to say, today I'm going to talk about the advice that nobody gives, the advice that I wish that I'd had. I want to debunk the myths of success that we're fed time and again. But mostly today also, and you all need to know this, I'm only making suggestions. I'm going to tell you a secret. When it comes to your career and your destiny, no one knows what's right for you except you. Everything every expert says is just best guesses, it's best practices, it's what's worked for them. Okay, so this is the part of the speech where I tell you a little bit about me, so you know why you should be listening to me. And I never know where to put this, but here it is, in here. Okay. I am the daughter of working class Italian Americans from Philadelphia. My parents were high school dropouts. They were 16 and 17 when I was born. My family struggled financially. At times we were very poor. Growing up, I understood the value of work only as a means of survival, to pay bills and pay food, and to buy food, not pay food. I saw what it was like to have a job, but not a fulfilling career. I was a weird, nerdy, hyper-emotional kid, and what I really wanted was a creative career, like the things I saw on TV and in movies. But when it came time for me to set out on my own, I couldn't really conceive of how to get there. I had no context for what it was. It seemed highfalutin and even pretentious and foolish to have a dream of a career that was something that you loved, to have work be a source of joy that would nurture you and help you grow, which is what I have now. It took me a long time to find my way. I failed out of college twice. In my 20s, I bounced from one waitressing job to the next, barely paying my rent. When I got up the courage to commit to the career I wanted, to be a writer and an editor, I went back to college, but by the time I graduated, I was 28 years old. It took me 23 job interviews to land my first job in New York media. I faced rejection upon rejection, was told time and again that I wasn't the right fit, that I didn't have the right experience, and was told basically that they weren't going to let me in. I interviewed for an entry-level job at a fashion magazine, and the editor interviewing me said, "I was expecting to see all people like you, but instead I'm getting all of these Harvard grads." And I didn't get the job. A few years later, I met a woman in HR at a big publishing company who told me I would never be an editor, that I had too much experience to be junior and too little experience to be senior, and that publishing folks rarely hired in the middle, and so maybe I should find another career to pursue. But I didn't listen to her. Instead, I worked constantly. I worked harder than I'd ever worked before. I made as many good connections as I could with solid people who would help me. I looked for yeses instead of nos. And 3 years after I met with the HR woman, I was the deputy editor of Lucky magazine. And 3 years after that, I was an editor-in-chief, and then I was a vice president. And I've gone to have more success than I ever dreamed possible. And today I have an amazing job that I could have never imagined. If you would have told poor 9-year-old kid me, or 23-year-old lost college dropout loser me, or 27-year-old broken lost waitress me, that I would be working side by side with Shonda Rhimes in a fancy office in Hollywood, in a building where Kerry Washington literally walks by, I would have told you you were insane. So all of that seems like a good story, right? Like, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and it's rags to riches. But that's not the whole story. And only telling you my road to success, which is what we do often, leaves so many important things out. Despite all the inspiring quotes in magazines and podcasts and all the other places, hear and see things about making it and doing it, and all the hashtags about being a boss, the success, once you get there, is not a magic potion that makes all your fear and insecurity go away, no matter how many fancy Instagram accounts make you think that it does. And being successful can look and feel all different ways, even if the business advice that I was talking about before seems to come from only one type of successful person who looks slick and never has toothpaste in her hair, which I did on the way over here. I am the Chief Content Officer of Shondaland today, but objective success of having this job does not change who I am. I'm an email hoarder, my calendar is a mess, no matter how how many TED Talks I watch on personal power and Wonder Woman posing. I don't always feel like a girl boss or a badass, and I don't have to. What kept me from success was not looking or feeling like that, but what kept me from success was being wishy-washy, holding myself back, letting my fear leave me paralyzed and lazy. What ultimately made me successful was understanding who I am, what my unique value was, the unique skills I have to bring into the world, being persistent and relentless, and even when I felt too scared to breathe, going for it. So, here's the part of the speech where I give you advice. I like to tell you, in case it wasn't obvious, here's the advice that I wish that I had had all of those years. The first thing I'm going to tell you is, don't fake it until you make it. Don't pay attention to anyone who says that you should. I mean, okay, you should fake like not having a robot voice. You should fake maybe feeling a little more self-assured than you are. But the reason I didn't get those first 23 jobs when I interviewed in New York was because I wanted to be the image of success that I didn't feel that I was. And I missed out on my inherent value, right? So I went into these interviews wearing this like business suit, and I had this trumped up resume and all these fancy words. But my real value was that I was going for entry-level jobs as an assistant, and I had been working since I was 13 years old, and I knew how to be in the world. I knew how to talk to people. I had experience that other entry-level candidates did not have that was mine to own, and that's what I should have owned. And that's how I got that 24th job, because not only did I own who I was, but I also was myself. I wasn't on. And the boss who ultimately hired me had real chemistry with me, and we really liked each other. And if I had just been trying to be this phony person, I wouldn't have gotten that job either. So don't fake it till you make it. Figure out what your real value is and present that. Okay, don't fake it till you make it. Number 2, everything you've been told about confidence is wrong. We're told that confidence is the key to success, right? That it's a fixed state. That is simply not true. Confidence is fleeting. It will be with you sometimes and not at others. It is fragile. It can be hollow. People come out and they Wonder Woman pose and look at me, I'm so confident, but like my legs are shaking, right? We think confidence is a requirement to be successful and even to survive, but it's not. What is a requirement is courage. You need courage to get through everything in your life, and you need competence. Being really good at what you do is what will calm your fears and make you able to move forward. So competence and courage is what you need over confidence. Confidence is a bill of goods we've been sold. And the best advice that I can give you is not to count on it, but to moderate your ego so you're not swinging between I am God or I am garbage. Because that's what I see so many people do, right? You're in these moments and you're like, yeah, I got it, I'm God. And then very quickly you go, no, I'm just garbage. And that's what keeps you unable to do things, that sort of mixed up swing that's happening. You don't need to be one or the other. You're in the middle, because we all are, even Kanye West. Some days you will feel good about your work. Some days you will feel bad, but all days you are fundamentally the same. Ground yourself so you don't crave constant validation, so that every accomplishment or positive reinforcement or every negative comment or rejection doesn't redefine who you are. Okay. That's 2. Number 3, mentorship is not what you think. So I'm seeing this thing happening right now about mentorship, and it's this idea of getting mentored. And it's become formalized and fetishized to a degree that on top of all the other crap we're putting on young women, like all the pressure, there's now this pressure for mentorship to look a certain way, for you to find some kind of like kindly fairy godmother who will dole out like bippity-boppity-boo, just to keep the metaphor going, sage advice, and cheer you on in the sidelines of your career and just be there in a consistent way and be magical, right? But because of this overemphasis on mentors, I now see young women who feel bad about themselves when they don't have one, adding it to the list of imagined ways they are inferior. So I'm going to assuage your fears on this one and tell you, you don't need a mentor. You need to surround yourself with a network of smart, supportive people, preferably women, no offense, men in the room, people who care about you, who don't think that work is boring, who share your drive and your passion, who are ideally in your profession or something close, but that's not even necessary. When you naturally, organically hit it off with someone older or more experienced who works in your field or the field you want to go into, whose opinions and work you respect, whether it be your boss or a coworker or someone you met on LinkedIn, you should pick her brain as often as you can without being rude. You should not call this picking your brain because everyone hates that phrase. Just that's a little secret. Mentoring is not something that's going to look the same for everyone. You might find it in a 5-minute conversation with somebody today. You might find it in a career advice center. Sometimes it does look the way you want it to. Sometimes you meet someone and they have meaning for decades of your professional life. And that's beautiful when it does, but it doesn't always happen that way. So don't be bummed out if it doesn't. Your job is to get as much information as you can from people who have more experience than you. You are seeking advice and clarity and support. You need to be open to getting that from a number of places over time. What you can control in that moment is when you meet people you respect, to be open and earnest and to be respectful of their time. That's the things you can control. You can't control if a winged fairy comes into your life and lands on your shoulder. But you control being open to constructive criticism, to reaching out to people. So when it's time, so then flipping that, that's what you control about having a mentor. When it's time for you to be a mentor, don't get hung up on, oh, maybe I don't know enough, or, oh, I don't know if I'm smart enough to talk to this person. The only thing you have to do when you're a mentor is to be generous with your time and not make it all about you. As women, supporting other women is among the most powerful and long-lasting impacts we can have. It expands far beyond the more myopic goals of a particular job or particular class. We owe it to each other to do that, but it doesn't have to be in any kind of cookie-cutter way. Okay. I think I'm on number 4. That's 4 fingers. Okay. Networking. Here's another myth about success. Everybody says, oh, you need a giant network. Go out and network. Network here. Go to this event. Get online and network. Dance. I, as discussed, am a really emotional and awkward person, and I can be really introverted, and networking does not come naturally for me. I find it really inorganic and weird, and I don't know how to stand, and I don't know what to say. And guess what? It turned out I didn't need a huge network. I'm here. You don't need 1,000 people. If you're a person who's like one of those people who just likes doing that, great, do it. But if you're not, you don't need 200 people in your network. You need 20 solid people. You need people who care about you genuinely, who give a damn about what's going to happen to you, who want you to succeed. So go to events when you want to go to events. Don't when you don't. Don't make it this huge pressure on yourself that it's the only way that you're going to be successful. If networking is not something that feels great, you don't have to do it that much. Okay, so that's sort of all of the debunking, the sort of beginning of your career advice stuff. And now I want to kind of talk about leadership a little bit and some of the ideas around leadership that I think are wrong. I guess is speech negative? I don't know. I hope not. I'm trying to be really hopeful, but I want to tell it like it is. That's my daughter. Thank you, honey. Okay. So She's 7. So I talked a little bit about how much I like courage over confidence. I think that there's an idea about bossing that you need to be this sort of tower of confidence and stability and be strong and have these really tight boundaries, and that's the way you're going to be a great leader. But I think the most important thing about leadership is bravery. And I'll tell you why, because I think that every bad boss is a coward. And I've had lots of bad bosses, so I have a lot of experience, a pool of experience to pull from. Bad bosses lack the courage to give critical feedback directly and kindly without blowing up in people's faces or avoiding the conversation altogether because they're afraid it might be messy. It takes bravery to hold your employees accountable. It takes bravery to be accountable yourself. It takes courage to sit with other humans and sort out their strengths and weaknesses, to set goals for them consistently and help them meet those goals. It takes selfless courage to let your employees go when it's time and right for them. It takes courage to keep your jealousy and discomfort in check again and again to meet the better good of a team. It takes bravery to spend 40 plus hours a week with other humans and remain open and thoughtful and to not give up. So that's my speech on leadership. That's basically it. We're going to have a Q&A, but I'm going to end on this note. I talked a lot about how much I think that a lot of advice is contrived and hollow, but there's advice from the artist Laurie Anderson, her 3 rules for living well, which have really stuck with me and have time and again really felt true. So I'm going to give them to you right now. These are Laurie Anderson's 3 rules for living well. 1, don't be afraid of anyone. And then she says, imagine what it would be like if you were afraid of no one. And I just love that so much. 2, get a really good bullshit detector. 3 is to be really, really tender, to stay open. And with those 3 things, you don't need anything else. That's it. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much for your inspirational story and for speaking to us today. I'm looking forward to reading your book. My question for you is, who was your number 1 mentor? Who influenced you the most, and what can you tell us about that person?
Well, like I said, so I had many mentors, and it was all different people at different times. I was fortunate enough to very briefly work with the reporter David Carr, who I was just the kind of misfit that he took under his wing, and he would push me into jobs that I didn't know I wanted. And he would just say very simple things like, you just got to do it. It's like, oh, okay, you're right. Like, you're not doing it right now. You just got to do it. Do you want to be a writer? Start writing. So he was really helpful. And then later in my career, I would say I didn't get a mentor until I was 37 years old, really, the way we think of it. And it was a woman who had like several MBAs and spoke several languages and was just like a tough business lady. And she taught me that I was a much better business person than I thought I was, because I always thought I was just like this watery, like puddle. And I didn't realize that I could be both things, that I could be a watery puddle and also really good at business. And so she meant a lot to me.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I just want to say I really appreciate everything you said because it really resonates with me. But I want to ask you,
Yes.
So you mentioned being between the I am God phase and the I am trash phase.
Yes.
You said that if you were able to tell yourself that when you were younger, that it would change the opportunities that you were rejected from. So if you were to own that and the rejection still happened, how would you go about bringing those opportunities to yourself without the idea of, I know everybody says, you know, if the opportunities don't come to you, make your own opportunities, but, you know, just how would you go about that?
Well, I think we're conflating a couple of things here. So the opportunity, which this is a good question, right? You have to go after your own opportunities. No one's going to make it happen but you, right? You just have to go after it again and again. But the rejection, okay, getting the job doesn't mean that you are the best, and not getting the job doesn't mean you're trash, right? You are the same. You have the same value, and that value is good. You have unique value, right? And that's what I mean by moderating your ego. What I said about not getting the jobs was that I was faking it. And the best opportunities you're going to have and the best work relationships are going to be when you can be as genuine as possible, present yourself as realistically as possible, with, of course, like a little bit of sugar on top, you know? But it's so cliche, but being yourself, sitting before someone and saying, this is who I am, this is why I want this, having all your hunger there, that's okay. But misrepresenting yourself is the problem, right? And you should go for everything. That doesn't change any of this. You should hustle. The hard work and becoming competent is the part of this equation that's going to make it all work. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi.
Hi, my name is Lauren. I go to American University in Washington, D.C.
Hi.
I wanted wanted to have you address, in a lot of college campuses, particularly those in big cities, there's kind of the pendulum, I think, swings between that I am God, I am trash phase, particularly around internships. And I was wondering if you could speak to any advice dealing with that kind of somewhat a toxic culture on college campuses that, and the pressure to do with internships and people boasting about how successful they are when it's not necessarily a realistic option for a lot of people in college.
Right.
And yeah, addressing that when other people are coming at you with it so fast.
Right.
Or if you had any advice.
I do, and it's so simple and it's such common sense, but you just need to ignore the jerks. Like, you just need to be laser focused on your path and what's right for you. And like, look at me. There weren't internships coming to me. I was just a loser for like a really long time. And, you know, nobody wanted to hire a 28-year-old like lady, you know, to be an intern, but I got internships. I got an assistant job finally. You need to identify your dream, know what you want, and be relentless in pursuing it. Everything else is noise. You're welcome. Oh, I'm going over there.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ankita. I'm from
Hi.
Rutgers University. Thank you for being here today. I have a question. It's kind of related to my personal experiences. I'm a STEM student, and when I first joined my research lab, I was the only girl, and I was also the youngest undergrad. And so what I noticed is it's easy to be confident and to demand respect when you know what you're talking about and you have experience. So I was wondering, do you have tips on how to still demand the same level of respect when you're new or when you're unsure of yourself?
Well, I think there's a long time in your career where you're watching, or at least in a job. It's not in your career, right? You get into a job. I mean, I'm just in a new job, right? So I had a similar thing. I wasn't going to go into Shondaland and demand respect, right? Like, you don't demand respect from Shonda Rhimes, you earn it, right? So I think it's the same. The pattern happens over and over again. You don't demand respect. You go into a job. You figure out how to do it really well, right? You watch. You kind of step back and you look around. What's the office dynamic here? What are the office politics? What's the actual work? How do I figure out how to do the work? You ask for help. You work extra hard in the beginning. You get yourself to a place that is stable, right? And you know how to do it. Then you start asserting yourself, right? Then you can start to assert your opinions, and then if you're doing really well and you're asserting your opinions and you know how to do the job and people aren't respecting you, then you demand respect. Then you start saying, hey, I know what I'm doing here. No one's listening to me. Why is nobody listening to me? And that has nothing to do with age or pedigree or anything. It has to do, again, with competence, right? So I think it's a process, and I think it starts over again at every new opportunity you have. You have to earn it, to sort it out. Then you start to demand respect. But if you go in like guns blazing, like, I demand respect, you're really going to do yourself a disservice, right? So it's better to go slow, be quiet, take it all in, get really good, and then strike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first of all, thank you so much for being here and for bringing your voice. It's really great to hear people with voices like yours. My question is about like respecting your introverted nature and knowing when to push yourself. And with your years of experience, I'm hoping you can speak a little bit about finding that balance.
Well, I mean, it's hard, right? It's not easy, and again, there's no great answers to anything, right? But I'm going to tell you what I do, I just force myself to do things, right? Like, when I feel like they're necessary. Like, for example, meetings. I get really, really nervous in meetings. When you get into the working world, you have to sit in conference rooms, and it's really weird, and they're like airless, and there's like a phone in the middle, and it crackles, and somebody's always on it, and everyone's talking, and it's very intense because like you don't really understand all the energy in the room. Anyway, I've been in a lot of meetings, as you can imagine, in my life, and in the beginning of my career, they would literally make me break out in hives. Like when it was my turn to talk, I would turn red from like my chin to my chest. And what I had to do in that situation, and everyone like it, is figuring out coping techniques to work for me. So I knew I was going to have to speak in meetings. I knew it was important that if I didn't, they wouldn't pay attention to me, right? And I wouldn't move on. And I knew I had smart things to say, right? So I had to overcome what was basically a handicap, right? And I just wrote a script for myself. Like I would literally, down to like the thes. And then I thought, and then I would read it. And until I got over that fear, that's what I did. And it's figuring out what are your, not weaker areas, but what are the places where you're soft, and figuring out how to protect yourself and to cope with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
My name is Lily.
Hi, Lily.
I wanted to talk to you about your "don't fake it till you make it"
Yes.
idea, since I actually had
It's controversial.
I had the opportunity yesterday to hear Ann Cuddy, who's the Power Pose woman,
Yes.
speak. So
Look, I'm impressed with those ladies. They just don't have stains on their clothes like me.
oh my
Go ahead.
goodness. Me too.
Go
Don't
ahead.
worry. But I wanted to ask you about how your advice on finding yourself. You said like the more important thing, the faking it till you make it or fake it till you believe it, is like how you develop and find yourself and your passion, your dream.
Yeah.
And what are your recommendations for somebody like me who I feel like I care a lot and I have a lot to offer, but I don't know exactly how to, like, where to do that and like what path is right for me.
Yeah. No. That's totally valid, and I hear that and I feel it, and I've been there. So my advice on this is to follow, it's a little counterintuitive, is to follow your bad feelings, right? What I think that the thing we really most want to do is the thing that other people are doing that makes us feel the most jealous. Like the things that like make us feel like most scared and jealous and mad, and you're looking through Instagram and you're like, why does that person get to do that job? I want to do that job. But you don't really know yet that you want to do the job, but you're just like, So I think follow your bad feelings, follow like the things that where you have the most intense emotion, where you feel most jealous or scared or like, I could never do that. Like, I felt that way about being a writer, and I think that's why it took me so long to actually become a writer, because it was really the thing that I was like, jealous and also scared. It just felt ridiculous to be like, I could be a writer, right? But once I flipped that and started working through the bad feelings and the fear and the jealousy and the anger, on the other side of it, I wrote a book. It's like, you can do it. I think that that's one way. I mean, there are lots of like finding the color of your parachute or whatever. But I found in my life and the experience I've seen with other people is that the thing you most want to do is the thing you feel the most intense about. Might work for you, I don't know.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. This advice is relevant to everyone of every age. So I graduated 10 years ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could speak to, in terms of keeping that laser focus. Often, there's noise, but sometimes there's noise we don't even realize it's noise because
Yep.
it's embedded in the subconscious, whether that's reality TV. When I was in high school, I remember thinking like, I know I don't need to listen to the magazines, but it was deeply embedded in my subconscious. So I, day to day, still felt, as we all do as women, to be perfect and all these things. So, yeah, like how do you sometimes shake it off or saber off kind of maybe things that you think are your friends, but they're actually hurting you in your journey, whether it's reality television or, things that you think are good for you are actually not, helping you stay true to who you are? And how do you deal with that, bringing that into your more conscious awareness?
That is a really amazing and deep question. And I could say to you right now that, I take baths and I read poetry, but really I just cry. like I just cry because the world is a harsh place and there are lots of rotten people and rotten things happening all the time. And I just very simply put one foot in front of the other and I get back up when the world pushes me down or tells me to F off. I just say, no, I'm still here. And I will say, I wanted to watch The Bachelorette, if we're going to talk about reality TV.
That's my one guilty
Right, okay,
pleasure.
so I've never watched it before, and I was like, oh, this is a really important season, I want to watch it. And so I was like, oh, you know what, I will just binge this whole thing, right? 2 nights, it's going to be great. And then first off, I didn't realize, every episode is 5 hours long. And second off, I was like, this is really skewing, I'm married, and this is skewing my idea of what romance should be. This is weird, and it's all about how beautiful she looks, and I'm like, oh, but she does look beautiful, And so I had a week of watching this, in this really deep way, and just feeling like a troll, and I was and my husband was terrible, I hear what you're saying. And why wasn't I in a Spanish villa? Or on a horse? On Rodeo Drive? What is that? Okay. Anyway. So I'm never going to watch it again. and that's the best advice I can give. Okay. Please wrap it up. Thank you so much. Thank you.